Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of my viewers. This is Prophet Lynn Templeton, and today we have a very interesting, should I call this a lesson, or should I call it a sermon, or I'm not sure what I should call it. However, we've named this the mystery of the light rapture, the mystery of the light rapture. I might have put something like DNA Rapture. Um, but for those who are new to this this forum, I am Prophet Lynn Templeton. I am a called prophet. I didn't call myself, but God has called me, and my wife has a separate calling, which has nothing to do with my calling. God called her through a prophet who came many miles just to announce her calling. And our ministry is called the Light of Truth Ministries International. Um, we are the center of our calling is teaching. Uh, and my focus has been to teach those who are in that intermediate and advanced level. However, the ministry is for everyone. But I do mention, I always like my listeners to know where we're coming from. Uh, and this is what I believe God wants me to do. I like to make a couple of notes. One is I haven't been able to access my Facebook, the ministry Facebook. Uh, and I'm not a technology savvy person. I'm technology good, but I'm not in. So I thought that it was something that I did, but someone told me it has to do with the ghosting, that they are actually playing games with some people. So I hadn't been able to post the sermons. So I apologize for those who look for the title of the sermon, but Facebook hasn't allowed me for actually 3 to 4 weeks. Um, for those who are new to this audience, who listen to the recording or whatever, we would love it if you would like us so that we can get credit for it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and tell others about us. We know that it's not for everyone, but for those who are mature believers, we're here for you. Okay, I think that covers. Good afternoon, Amber. Good to see you. I think that covers all the basics. Okay, this is going to be different because God dropped a couple of nuggets in my lap. I prepared, there's a prepared sermon, but God dropped a couple of things in. And so I've got several series of notes that I'm going to have to bounce off of. And it may take, good afternoon, Donna. It may take a couple of sessions, but you'll find it interesting. I'm presenting the facts. One of the jobs that I held before God called me was I was a financial analyst, a bank examiner with the federal government, the comptroller of currency, and the Federal Reserve. And so research was part of my job in analyzing numbers and analyzing people background. So that's something that I'm good at. And so I believe it's one of the reasons that one of the things God gave me so that I could do the teaching that I do. Now, having said all of that, the information that God ran upon, that brought to my attention, uh, is very interesting. Okay, let's get started. Okay, So Hebrews 10:32 is my pivotal verse. It's pivotal verse. Many of you who have been with me a while, you have heard my teaching about the light. This is a updated version that God has showed me some things that you need to know that you're going to find interesting. Now, Hebrews 10:32, it says, but call to remembrance the former days in which after you were illuminated, you endured a great affliction, fight of afflictions, partly with you were made a gazing stock both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly with ye became companion of them that were so used. And so this verse is, God gave me this verse uh, when I was in the early stage of when I was called, the first month or two. And there's something that happened that three different churches, they saw, different people saw this light. And I had no idea that what was I didn't realize, okay, I'll say it that way, what was why they were gazing or looking at me the way they were. And this is how God revealed to me about the light that I've taught on the light a few times over the past 14 years. And Hebrews 10:32 is the verse that God spoke to me about this thing. Is saying, after you were illuminated, you endured a great of afflictions, and I did. I did. My family can tell you this, contest to this. My wife in particular. Um, but that's not what. That's not the point I want to make. But the point that I want to make, this verse is making for itself about the importance of the light. About the importance of the light. Now, Isaiah 60, verse 1 backs it up. It says, arise and shine, for the light, thy light is come, after the glory of Jehovah is risen upon thee. For behold, well, we'll stop right there. Okay, your light has come. So the light is pivotal to what people call the rapture. I call the translation, the word the Bible used, I call the translation, but the world know it as the rapture. Light, the light has to be there at, the light has to be sufficient. We'll say it that way. The light has to be sufficient. This is what God was telling me. The light has to be sufficient for someone to translate, or if you use the word rapture, the light is the cornerstone to this event. Remember what 1 John 1:5 says. It says that God is light. God is light. Okay? So this is pivotal. Bear with me. We're going to present some evidence to you, and I may have to discuss it in more detail in another session. But as I was looking through my notes, I saw some things and it just caught me off guard, what God showed me. Now, I immediately, first thing I did, I Googled particular words and terms. Uh, and one of the words was junk DNA. Now, for some of one or two of you that have been with me a long time, you know I did a sermon about the role of your DNA and what role it plays with the light in the translation or rapture. Your DNA is the pivotal part of it. How you physically, that has to do with you physically translating or rapturing. Okay. And if you remember, your DNA is 95% or higher, some rate even higher, as much as 98% of your DNA is a light receptor, is a light receptor. And so I Googled junk DNA. For some reason, it just came up in my head to Google that. And it said in genetics, the term junk DNA refers to the region of DNA that are non-coding. Some of this non-coding DNA is used to produce non-coding RNA. Non-coding RNA. We're going to come back to that probably next week, because that RNA has something to do with the vaccination. Okay, because Moderna, the name, they did research on RNA. Okay, in fact, the name Moderna, Moderna. Okay, there was a doctor that I listened to that explained about Moderna and about the vaccination. And okay, that's another conversation. So that's interesting, right? Now, I Google also crystalline DNA, and it said originates in the non-physical or quantum realm, as it is far greater than a biological entity. Now, when it talk about quantum realm, it's talking about another dimension. Okay, it says the traditional biologic foundation of carbon-based, et cetera, et cetera. Now, bear with me. I'm giving you research evidence, okay? And we're probably not going to completely conclude, but we'll start concluding in this session after we give the evidence, okay? Now, let's jump back to my sermon notes. And it's okay. So when I read Isaiah 61, I read it all the way through. If you go to 60, verse 5, it says, then thou shalt see and be radiant, and thy heart shall thrill and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be turned unto thee, the wealth of the nations shall come unto thee. So the key word there in this discussion is radiant. When I read that, I said, what are you saying to me, God? The word radiant, I looked it up. Interesting what I found. First of all, I found that the word was to the word uh, brilliant. The synonym connection is unstable. Why is it saying that? Interesting. Anyway, um, the synonym of radiant is bright, is brilliant, and luminous. Those words are synonyms. Okay. Then I looked that up, and those words, the word brilliance is derived from the ancient Greek word for beryllus, which means crystal. Okay. Beryl, Beryl, it means crystal. And that's where you get the word radiant traces back to the originating term. Okay, bear with me. We're showing you evidence here. And so then I look back at my research notes again, and that goes back to DNA. And so I think I Googled something to do with the DNA, and I came up with this scientific review. The scientific review that I printed off of the internet. Excuse my printer putting lines on the sheet. But anyway, and it talked about 3D DNA, crystals, and nanotechnology. Okay. Okay, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to just read a few excerpts from this article by, I think it's Dr. Paul Paxtelius. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing his name right. And Nadrian Seaman. Okay. And in their article that they listed, talking about crystals and nanotechnology, they stated, okay, rooted in the exploration of another class of structures that have fascinated humans for millennia. Crystals. Crystals. Interesting, huh? Let me show you one other thing. Then if I went down, it said it was originally proposed that DNA could be used as a programmable, if I'm saying the word right, programmable construction material. Okay, for anyway, I'm not going to read all of that, but it's the DNA could be used as a programmable construction material. Okay, now this really, I mean, this had to be God, because I stumbled on this article actually about 3 or 4 hours ago. Just out of curiosity, I, start Googling, and doing so forth. And so what this is saying, and we'll talk about it some more next week, because I don't want to take too much time. We're 21 minutes into this. First of all, what they're telling you is your DNA is composed of crystals. It's composed of crystals. And these crystals is what holds the light. The light. Remember, 1 John 1:5 says, God is light. God is light. Now, and in this article, they also talked about how the DNA crystals and nanotechnology. Nanotechnology, we'll talk about that more next week. Okay. I'm hoping they don't take this sermon down. Okay. But that has to do with, we'll say, many computers, microscopic computers that can be put in your body. Okay. Now, but we're putting the cart before the horse. So what we are saying here, we're going to say for this week, what God has shown me, and we're going to show you scientific evidence. But remember that God has a science as well. Our science is really a deviation of the real science. The Bible calls the science that the angels have omniscience. And in many churches, they use the abbreviation, they use the word omniscient, which is the abbreviated first 4 letters of science. Okay, it means omniscience. It's almost like someone tried to confuse the believers. Okay, but anyway, that's what that word means, omniscience. So there's a science to all of this. The rapture is a scientific event because you are physical. And so God is changing what it is, a change from what is physical into something that is spiritual, we'll say a level of spiritual. And remember, the spiritual has 4 levels. It has at least we're looking. We'll say it's 4 levels. Okay, and the next level up from the physical, going into the first level of spiritual, is energy. And energy is the result of light. Okay, but we're not gonna go real into the. I could break it all down because I'm on that chapter of writing my book. I'm on that chapter. Okay, but what you need to know in this session, and we'll talk about it more in the next session, but what I need to give you in this session as a summary, as a conclusion for this one, is that God is telling us that your DNA is part of the rapture process. The crystals is what hold the light. And this is scientific. You see, this article is telling you, okay, and the crystals uh, play the pivotal role, and they can also, through these crystals, they can do other things. Okay, that even viruses can be inserted into go into your DNA, and they can be inserted into your DNA uh, through different means. I'm trying to be careful here too. Uh, so this is all tied to your DNA. Even so, what I'm telling you, okay, and we'll talk about it more next week. What I'm telling you is that this vaccination is tied to this information. But I don't want to try to give it all to you and then I'll jumble it up. Next week we'll get into that, in more detail. But what I want you to understand in this session is that the rapture has to do with your DNA receiving light, and that light can be infused in you through get this, through knowledge, through truth, in particular through the knowledge of truth. Okay, and I've taught on that, so I'm not going into detail on that today, because we are just explaining to you that your DNA is pivotal in all of this that's going on. Okay, that your DNA has crystals, and this was a shocker to me to find this out. But I knew through faith that your DNA, it is a light receptor. It is a light receptor. And all these years they've been telling you got junk DNA. It's not junk. It's God designed it that way, because that 95 to 97% is a light receptor, and and the light is the light from heaven. It is the Hebrews 10:32, the illumination that is the celestial light. And there is going to be a light event. Okay, there is going to be a light event that's going to take place, and it won't be long. It won't be long at all. Okay, and your DNA, for those who have reached a certain maturity, that light is going to come in and spill over. And the spilling of the cup is what's going to take you into the heavenly realms, because it's basically what we know of as teleportation. Okay. I think that's enough for today. We'll make it even more plainer next Sunday. You know, um I'm hoping I set a good foundation this Sunday. But next Sunday will be the blockbuster, you know, providing they don't take me off of you know. So but anyway, uh next Sunday will explain to you how it all tied together with this nanotechnology and where this vaccination come into play, this virus and this vaccination come into play. Uh, um, I think I read that verse where they talk about, I'm hoping I did, I'm just realizing I might have left something out where they talked about how your DNA, how the virus, how viruses are infused into your DNA. But we'll get into that next week, and we'll make sure that you understand that. We'll make sure that I haven't confused you, rather than make it plain. So we'll break it down much better next week, and you'll understand why I'm excited to bring it to you next Sunday. Okay, so I want to thank you for joining us, for joining us this Sunday. We want to thank you for being with us, and we pray that God bless you, and may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. I got it on the wall now. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next Sunday. So long.